Hi. Today we will explain the storyline of a movie titled Ashes, which was released in 2024. Okay, let's get right to the story. Gökçe has been married for 10 years to her husband, Kenan, a renowned book publisher. One day, after celebrating her husband's success, Gökçe discovers a manuscript of a romantic novel titled Ashes. For days, Gökçe reads the manuscript intently and becomes fascinated by the locations mentioned. She invites her friend, Lele, to visit a bakery named Musfika because she is curious about a man with the initial M who frequently visits the shop. According to Gökçe's description, the man named M is a carpenter with several tattoos on his body. Lele reminded Gökçe that the novel was fictional, but Gökçe insisted it was real. Gökçe argued she believed the man was real because the bakery actually existed. Despite this, Gökçe insisted on exploring the area around the bakery alone. She then tried to find a woodworking shop based on the clues in the novel, but she often got lost. After that, Gökçe approached Kenan at the office, but her husband seemed unenthusiastic because he was busy. She only gave him coffee, then went home and continued reading. The next day, Gökçe returned to Musfika. Without beating around the bush, she asked about the location of the tower mentioned in the manuscript, but the shop owner had no idea about the tower in question. To make a long story short, outside the bakery, Gökçe saw a male customer whom she suspected was M. She followed him to a woodworking shop. Shortly after, the man served Gökçe, thinking she wanted to buy a mirror from him. The man's name was Ali, the nickname of Metin Ali Soykan. Knowing his initials, Gökçe became even more certain that the man was indeed M from the manuscript, so she returned to ask for Ali's phone number. After returning from Ali's shop, Gökçe, who did not actually need a mirror for her boutique, asked her assistant Seylan to measure the wall where the mirror could be hung. After that, Gökçe immediately called Ali to give him the mirror's dimensions and the style she wanted. Since then, Gökçe couldn't stop thinking about Ali. The more she read about the character M in the script, the more her feelings grew. She tried to vent her feelings on Kenan, but she didn't feel the satisfaction she had hoped for. She continued reading, but this time she discovered that M was already married. The next day, Ali came to Gökçe's boutique to deliver the finished mirror. He then hung the mirror in the spot Gökçe had requested. At first, the mirror was propped up on the floor, but Gökçe thought it would look better hanging on the wall. However, Ali said the mirror was too heavy and the walls of Gökçe's boutique were too thin to support its weight. Sure enough, before the mirror could be hung, it slipped from Ali's hands, shattering and cutting his hand. Gökçe rushed to help bandage Ali's hand, Ali feeling guilty that the mirror frame wasn't sturdy enough. However, Gökçe also felt bad and offered to cover the damages. While treating Ali's wound, Gökçe asked if Ali's wedding ring had come off. Ali was confused by the question because he was still single. Gökçe secretly felt happy knowing this and later told Lale about it. She didn't forget to continue reading the novel wherever she went, constantly thinking about the location of the tower in the novel. That night, Gökçe scolded her daughter, Iga, for scribbling on the novel she was reading, but Kenan thought Gökçe's reaction was excessive, especially since it was just a draft. Gökçe defended herself, saying that Iga's behavior was unacceptable. The next day, Gökçe went to Ali's shop to ask about the mirror and check on Ali's hand, but since the mirror wasn't ready yet, Ali invited Gökçe to go out with him while they chatted. They went to the market for lunch, where Gökçe tried to ask Ali about his background and listen to his experiences. He then invited Gökçe to go to a tower at a secret location, which whereabouts were unclear. But since Gökçe had to go home soon, she promised to return. Kenan kept calling her on the way home, and upon arriving home, Kenan informed her that Ega had gotten into a fight at school and was sent home. Kenan complained that Gökçe was hard to reach and that she should have handled the matter instead of him and Lele, but Gökçe explained that she had business outside the boutique and didn't hear Kenan's calls. That night, Kenan tried to make up with Gökçe, but Gökçe said she wasn't feeling well. The next day, Gökçe was getting ready to receive the mirror from Ali, but after handing it over, Ali invited Gökçe to go to the tower.
Biraz kurcaladım da ilginç bir kitaba benziyor.
On the way, a woman who passed by them stared at her intently. Gökçe asked if Ali knew the woman, but Ali quickly said no. To make a long story short, Ali actually knew exactly where the tower Gökçe was talking about was, and it was a place he secretly liked to visit to reflect. Upon arriving at the tower, Gökçe was stunned to see that the tower was exactly as described in the novel, from the pictures on the walls to the shape of the stairs leading up to the tower. She couldn't wait to see what was at the top of the tower. She confessed to Ali that her mind had taken her there in her imagination, even though she had never visited it before. Ali remained curious about how Gökçe knew about the place. At first, Gökçe said that someone at the bakery had mentioned the tower, but Ali didn't believe her because it seemed impossible. Gökçe then said again that she had dreamed about the place, as if fate wanted her to find it herself. While on the roof of the tower, Gökçe felt incredibly free and was mesmerized by the sunset view, forgetting the time until she missed her dinner appointment with her husband and business partner. After the sun set, Ali turned on the lights illuminating the name of the tower building, which turned out to be the former Istanbul Agung restaurant and hotel, built in 1962. So happy, Gökçe stood at the edge of the roof, and Ali thought she was putting herself in danger. To make a long story short, they sat on the roof and chatted. Gökçe shared that she wanted to change everything in her life. She then asked Ali what he wanted to change, but Ali said he didn't want to change anything. Meanwhile, Kenan waited for Gökçe at the restaurant until the dinner event ended. Kenan finally went home alone, but he didn't find Gökçe. Shortly after, Gökçe returned and didn't feel guilty for missing the dinner. The next day, Kenan stopped by Gökçe's boutique, but Seylan said Gökçe was out. At that moment, Kenan noticed changes in the boutique, which was now more colorful and had a new mirror. Seylan explained that it was Gökçe's idea to make some changes to the boutique, and she also mentioned that the mirror was specially made by a craftsman inspired by the novel she often reads. Kenan then asked what the title of the novel was, after which he left the boutique since Gökçe wouldn't be returning either. Meanwhile, Gökçe eavesdrops on Ali and his wife's conversation in the store. It turns out that the woman is the pedestrian who noticed them yesterday on their way to the tower. Although they are still husband and wife, they are in the process of divorcing. For Ali, their marriage is over, but for the woman, they are still bound by marriage. After the woman left, Gökçe rushed in and demanded an explanation from Ali. She said that she had clearly asked him yesterday if he knew the woman, but Ali had lied and said he didn't know her. Ali couldn't accept being accused like that and turned around to blame Gökçe, who he claimed had also lied. The argument unexpectedly made them more attracted to each other, and in the midst of the heated argument, they ended up sleeping together. Ali then told Gökçe how he and his wife, Busra, had gotten married. However, Ali said he had never loved Busra. Their marriage was purely a business arrangement because their fathers were business partners. After Ali's father died, he asked for a divorce, but Busra refused and chose to leave. That afternoon, Gökçe was driven home by Ali. From a distance, Layla saw her with another man and could only shake her head in disbelief. That night, Kenan asked for the manuscript of the novel Ashes that Gökçe was reading, but of course Gökçe didn't give it to him because she was still reading it. Kenan said he wanted to review it soon, but Gökçe didn't hear him. She continued reading the novel, which had now reached the chapter about the dinner between the characters M and R, which ended tragically. The character M was described as killing the author, which startled Gökçe and made her feel uneasy, so much so that she dreamed of herself dying in a bathtub filled with the novel's manuscript. Gökçe told Layla about it the next day, becoming convinced that Metin or Ali was the murderer, given the real-life locations of the bakery and the tower. Layla tried to think rationally and reminded Gökçe that it was just fiction and the real-life locations were just coincidences, but Gökçe insisted it wasn't a coincidence. Layla challenged her again, saying that if the author had been killed, how could he or she has written the manuscript of Ashes? Gökçe remained silent, unable to respond. Layla then told Gökçe that she had gone too far and scolded her for being with Ali in the car the previous day. In the end, Gökçe decided to finish reading Ashes. She handed the manuscript to Kenan and gave her own impressions of it. In conclusion, Gökçe didn't really like the story. She then asked Kenan to let her know if he found out who wrote Ashes because she wanted to convey her criticism and suggestions herself. Kenan said he would let Gökçe know later, then read the manuscript himself. As Kenan delved deeper into the chapters, he began to understand what had caused Gökçe's change of heart. The next day, at the office, Kenan tried to find out who had sent the manuscript, but his secretary said the sender was unknown. This, of course, confused Kenan, but he didn't give up. He told his secretary to track down all the couriers they knew. Meanwhile, in the afternoon, Gökçe visited Ali's woodshop, but Ali was at the market. At that moment, Kenan was also at the market looking for the bakery mentioned in the manuscript, and he easily found it. On the other hand, Ali was chatting with a middle-aged woman at the market while shopping. He then invited Gökçe to talk somewhere quieter. Without beating around the bush, Gökçe asked Ali not to lie to her anymore. Here, she confessed that she had fallen in love with Ali and wanted to get to know him better. She couldn't explain why she was so afraid of losing Ali because of a novel. Shortly after, Kenan arrived at the same market, just as Gökçe was pouring out her troubled thoughts to Ali. So overcome with emotion, Gökçe broke the glass she was holding, causing Ali to immediately tend to her wound and hug her to calm her down. Without realizing it, Kenan saw what they were doing from across the street. Suddenly, Kenan's secretary called to inform him about who sent the manuscript of ashes. The sender's name was Reyhan, and she already knew the address. Without delay, Kenan went to Reyhan's apartment address. It turned out that Reyhan was a woman. She claimed to know nothing about the book Kenan was referring to, saying she now lived alone. But previously she had lived with Duygu, her sister. Unfortunately, Duygu had been missing for a long time. Kenan tried to explain that Duygu might have been killed by a carpenter mentioned in the Ashes manuscript sent from Reyhan's address. Not wanting to discuss it further, Reyhan asked Kenan to leave immediately. However, before he had gone far from Reyhan's apartment, Kenan saw Reyhan getting into a taxi. It turns out Reyhan knew exactly what Kenan meant. She went to Ali's shop, where he was preparing to deliver an order. Reyhan told Ali that Kenan had approached her and mentioned Duygu. Ali was very upset to hear this because he didn't want them to discuss Duygu again. On the other hand, Kenan was also very angry because he had been deceived. Kenan then went home and approached Gökçe, who had just finished showering. He told her that he already knew who the author of Ashes was and that the author had died. He revealed that there was something odd about the manuscript because the author had written about her own death, but Kenan didn't know how Duygu had died and told Gökçe to find out from Reyhan. The next day, Gökçe went to Reyhan's apartment building, but Reyhan wasn't there. A female resident said Reyhan had moved suddenly. Gökçe asked about Duygu, and the woman said Duygu was reported to have committed suicide, but another rumor claimed Duygu was killed by a man who sneaked into her apartment. Meanwhile, Kenan went to Ali's workplace, pretending to want to order a bookshelf. Ali secretly felt suspicious of Kenan, but he tried to act normal and conducted the transaction as usual. On the other hand, Gökçe continued her investigation, meeting Ali's wife Busra to gather information, but Busra was unwilling to share much, especially about Duygu. Busra knows the connection between Gökçe and her husband and only asks Gökçe to stay away. Sometime later, Ali arrives to install the bookshelf Kenan ordered at his house. Kenan tries to make small talk and asks if Ali has ever been married, but before long, Gökçe returns. Acting as if nothing is amiss, Kenan introduces Ali to Gökçe and even invites her to join them for dinner. Gökçe sits awkwardly and tries to enjoy her dinner, but she feels something is wrong. Kenan then starts talking about fictophilia, a psychological disorder that causes the sufferers to fall in love with fictional characters. Here, he implies that this is what happened to Gökçe after reading a novel. He mentions Duygu's name, and Ali immediately becomes angry upon hearing it. Kenan finally revealed the core of the story from the manuscript, where he was certain that the character M was Ali. The novel stated that M had an affair with R, the author's younger sister, and without a doubt, he suspected R was Reyhan. Ali desperately tried to deny all the accusations, but Kenan then revealed that Gökçe had found Ali through the manuscript of Ashes. Hearing this, Ali was shocked and demanded Gökçe's confession. After hearing Gökçe's confession, Ali became furious. Ali still tried to deny it and refused to admit that he killed Duygu, insisting that Duygu died by suicide. Kenan then burned the novel manuscript, which could serve as evidence. Meanwhile, Ali attacked Kenan because he couldn't take the pressure, while Gökçe remained silent at the dining table and watched them struggle until they fell into the swimming pool. Sometime later, a writer named Taner published the book Ashes and held a press conference. He said the book blurred the line between fiction and reality.